Now, in his opening remarks at the recently ended Africa Foods Summit in Dakar, President of Senegal and African Union chairperson Macky Sall said Africa must learn to feed itself. This as the African Development Bank announced that about 283 million Africans are hungry. Attended by 34 heads of state and government and 1,000 dignitaries, the clarion call has been for African countries to commit 10% of their national budgets to the agriculture sector. I'm now joining conversation with Akin, Alabi, the co-founder of Corporate Farmers International, to unpack resolutions that came out of the summit. Akin, thanks so much for joining us on Africa Today. Let's talk about what was decided by that summit that ended a few days ago.
All right, thank you very much for having me. It's an honor. The summit was a very successful one that happened in Dakar, Senegal, organized by the AFDB, African Development Bank. And the summit has had the convergence of various heads of states, presidents of different countries in Africa. And also we have the president of Ireland that also present, stakeholders, NGOs, developmental partners, coming together to Dakar, Senegal to discuss just one thing, and that is about food. What is the future for food security in Africa? What can be done for food security in Africa? An inclusive conversation, bringing in private sectors, everybody, on that convergence room to discuss food security and also the future of food in Africa, because definitely Africa is the next frontier of the world, and definitely Africa is seen as the only continent in the world today that has the potential to grow food. And the belief is that Africa can actually feed itself and can actually grow itself. And with the resources Africa has currently, it's also possible for Africa to export its resources to other countries around the world. That is the basic conversation around the 3-day summit that was held in Dakar, Senegal by the EFDB.
Well, President Macky Sall, Ken, if you allow me, President Macky Sall said that if African countries, if governments spend 10% of their budgets on agriculture, that should take care of that problem. It's not really that simple. It's potentially a little bit more complicated than that. But how is all this likely to work, and was that well received?
Well, yes, that was well received actually, because that has been in existence for a long time now. Africa needs to actually keep 10% of the resources in terms of funding for the sector to grow the agricultural sector. That is what we need to do as Africans, because definitely around the world today, food is important. Food is important for growth. Food is important for many other things. Because today I have eaten. A farmer, being a farmer myself, I've been able to provide for myself and my family. But regardless, in commercial farming or big extension farming, food security is important for the development of an economy and for a nation at large. So what the president of Senegal said is actually the main fact and the truth, that Africa needs to keep 7% and 10% of the resources to support or to inject into food production, to support and also to grow its sector effectively.
Now, one of the key issues, obviously, is going to be financing agriculture. So commercial farmers or young farmers or any farmers that want to get into agriculture will obviously need some form of funding. The African Development Bank was present, in fact, put together this summit. How easy is it going to be for farmers to get finance?
Now, that was a critical conversation that actually happened in Dakar, whereby the question was, Africa needs to begin to source for financing, alternative financing model, traditional financing model, so that the smallholder farmers can produce more and can produce effectively. And definitely we need financing. And that was why during the entire 3-day summit, there were breakdown sessions, boardrooms that were, created for different countries that attended the entire event to discuss where are the areas that are actually pinching those countries and bring around stakeholders. For example, the CGIR was there, the World Bank was there, the different international organizations were there, name it. There were other people from Japan, different institutions were there to discuss food security. And what we believe, or what at the end of the whole 3-day summit, there was a procurement of $30 billion that has been set aside to produce or to support farming, to provide, to support smallholder farmers today in Africa. That's a whooping sum of money. And we believe that when those funds are channeled into the right source, especially the smallholder farmers, who are actually producing for Africa today, definitely will have a growth in the agricultural sector as a whole. And that is where we believe financing comes in. Financing is very important and critical to the development of the agricultural sector and supporting smallholder farmers so that they can have better seeds, they can have good mechanization, simple farm tools that will support them and also help them grow effectively and efficiently. I think that is the future of Africa, and that is where the conversation actually starts from, food security.
Akin, Alabi, we'll leave that conversation there. Appreciate your time today on Africa Today.